Well, hello and welcome to episode 2 of the BA Fringe. Thank you so much for joining us. BA Fringe is the live stream show that celebrates ideas at the edges of business analysis, whether that's intersecting disciplines, whether it's new ideas that are emerging, or old ideas, old friends that we should reconnect with and bring back into the centre of what we do as business analysts. I'm really pleased to announce that the show is supported and very proudly supported and sponsored by IIBA, the International Institute for Business Analysis. We're very, very grateful for the support IIBA have given us and for helping us share the message about BA Fringe. And what a lineup we have for you today, viewer. We have 4 fantastic guests talking on a diversity of really interesting and informative topics. So in order of appearance, we have Penny Pullan, who many of you will know from her international keynote speeches or her many books, is here today to talk to us about virtual leadership, a topic that I'm sure has renewed resonance for many of us for fairly obvious reasons with the current sort of COVID lockdown in many areas. We have Matthew Dean, who's going to be talking to us about a really tricky and important topic of imposter syndrome. You know, how many of us have felt that at some point in our career? Some really, really interesting and insightful stuff coming from Matt. Laurie Silverman is back by request. I've done a number of webinars with Laurie. Always, she has so much real insight to share. Today, she's going to be talking about the profound difference BAs can make in data analytics. And last but by no means least, we have best-selling author David Allen, who's going to be talking about getting things done. We also have 2 competitions. Stay tuned for details of these. You can get your hands on a free signed copy of Penny Pullan's book, Virtual Leadership. There's 1 of those available to 1 lucky winner. Stay tuned to hear about how you can enter that competition. Also provided by IIBA, there is 1 free exam. So you might want to get the opportunity to get certified. There's 1 token for a free exam for the Entry Certificate in Business Analysis, ECBA, which is relevant even if you're new to the profession, because you don't need any previous experience to study for and sit that exam. And it is the exam itself that is the prize. So do stay tuned for those competitions. You can also get in touch with us here at the studio. Maybe you want a shout out to a colleague or a friend, or maybe there's something you're celebrating and you want it read out live on air. You can either WhatsApp us or leave a regular voicemail. So if you ring the number that's on your screen, don't worry, it won't be a person that answers, it'll be voicemail. Or you can WhatsApp us. You can WhatsApp us video messages or images. We'll do our best to read them all out and show them. The number is +44 330 321 8281. That's +44 330 321 8281. So I'm really pleased that our next guest had the availability and was able to join us this evening. I've known Penny Pullan for a long time now, it must be over a decade. And I first met Penny at the first ever Business Analysis Conference Europe. And we were talking earlier in rehearsals because I can still remember some of the nuggets from Penny's session. Now, Penny's going to be talking to us about virtual leadership. But a little bit of an intro to Penny, a little bit about Penny. She's author of many books, co-author of Managing Successful Programs, MSP, the next version, where she's looking to bring in some business analysis thinking, which is something I think we would all endorse. She's also writing a book at the moment, Making Workshops Work, Creative Collaboration for Our Time, which sounds like it's very relevant at the moment. So Penny, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Absolutely, fantastic. So Penny, your book is entitled Virtual Leadership. Now, I'm sure that people have a slightly different take on what that means. It could mean a number of things to different.
There's virtual and there's leadership. The virtual, I mean, a little bit different from some other people. I mean, when I say virtual, I mean that at least one person in your team or project is remote geographically from the rest. So that includes what a lot of people are talking about when they're talking about hybrid. There's a lot of focus on that at the moment as well. And then leadership is not necessarily, you know, the one in charge of the organization or the one designated to be in charge of the team. It's anyone who sort of encourages people towards an agreed vision and motivates them, and who has followers. And I think BAs definitely are leaders. In fact, I even wrote a book, one of the ones you didn't mention, all about actually business analysts being leaders, and I think 27 other people wrote it along with me, and you were one of them.
I did indeed. I wrote a chapter about collaborating across organizations, which gosh, I'd almost forgotten about that, Penny. That was quite a while ago now. Was it 2009, 10, something like that?
2013.
2013. Oh yeah. Gosh, wow, time flies.
Time flies.
So you mentioned leading and having followers, and as you were talking there, I thought, that reminds me of how, as business analysts, we often we influence without authority. So would you say that what's written in your book and what's written about leadership and virtual leadership generally is relevant for us as BAs, where we don't necessarily have a formal leadership position?
Well, given the definition I used earlier, I think BAs definitely are leaders. And let me let you into a little secret. There are an awful lot of stories in here. This is a copy that's surprised, by the way. There are a lot of stories in here, and almost all of the stories are actually, and case studies, are business analysts.
Oh, wow. Really?
Gosh. Absolutely. And all the people who've read it. Now we've had not just sort of BAs and project teams, but we've had doctors, teachers, CEO today said it's one of the top 5 books for lockdown. Oh, wow. We've had so many different people reading it, and they've been inspired by the virtual leadership of business analysts. Isn't that great?
It is, absolutely. And I mean, one thing, funnily enough, that I can remember quite vividly from from the original Orange book, the BA leadership book, is the idea of almost like the onion diagram, where you've got self-leadership in the middle and different layers of leadership. Yeah. I mean, is that sort of model relevant for a virtual leadership environment as well?
Absolutely. I mean, onion models seem to be the only models I come up with, but I think it really applies, because virtual leadership, it's all about, at the core is yourself, deciding to step up to be the best virtual leader you can, understanding your own preferences, your biases, your values, your strengths, your weaknesses, and then expanding out to the next layer of the onion, where you can then understand other people's strengths, weaknesses, their communication preferences, their biases and values, and you can use that to generate rapport and to work together effectively virtually.
Yeah, definitely. So I suppose one thing that many of us are finding, so there will be some of us that are perhaps used to virtual work or used to semi-virtual and hybrid work, and but you know, pretty much there was a date in most countries where all of a sudden practically all knowledge workers were 100% virtual. And you know, productivity in that environment or staying productive is different. So do you have any tips for continuing to work collaboratively and productively in this new world we find ourselves in?
It's interesting. I had that transition into needing to work virtually just over 19 years ago. So I've been thinking about this a lot. Yeah. There's so many tips I could give you. I think one thing I noticed when everybody locked down in the UK was that people were working longer and longer and longer hours, and that this wasn't really very productive. Many people were working from 8 till 8 and solidly sitting most of the day in front of the screen with constant video meetings. So a couple of things that I say about that. If you are going to have video meetings, make them from 5 past the hour to 5:02. If you can actually implement that, you have 10 minutes in between. You can reorientate yourself. You can get up, go outside, get some sunshine, move, stop your back locking up, all of that. And it makes a massive difference. Several people I mentor have implemented that now, and it does make a huge difference.
Yeah, and I'd imagine you make friends that way as well, like getting time in people's diaries. I mean, that's just, everyone's going to thank you for that.
Absolutely. The other thing is to think about, do we actually need to do all of this with everybody there on the screen at the same time? I call that synchronous. There's another way of working together virtually, and that's asynchronous. So think about which bits you need to be all there together synchronously and which bits you can work on separately. So you don't have to be live with each other. And it may be that you can use a sort of blended combination of the two. That's normally what works best. And then people can work when it suits them. They're not just stuck in front of a screen all day, and they'll probably be far more productive as well.
Yeah, that reminds me of an approach I've found that seems to work quite well, Penny, is perhaps to initially collaborate on some sort of shared document asynchronously, then to get together and have a call, but quite a consolidated and focused call, and then make tweaks again asynchronously to a document. So a sort of blended approach to collaboration. Is that the sort of a mixture approaches you're referring to?
Absolutely. But, BAs are brilliant people. You can work out the precise blend that works given the people you have and the problem that you have to solve or what you're working on. You don't try and do it all in front of video.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes it's nice to just revert back to the old phone, isn't it? And just have audio for some meetings. So fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a really tricky question, I'm sure, because there are so many takeaways in your book. But if you were to think about, other than what you've mentioned already, a particular takeaway that you think would be relevant for BAs working in the current world, what would that takeaway be?
I think for BAs, you need to stop thinking, oh, am I a leader? Am I not? Should I just stay in the background? But actually decide, I need to step up, because you can make a massive difference. There are people floundering around. We're into this by about 6 months. Step up to be the leader you can be, and the virtual leader. As a BA, you may not be the leader on the project, you probably aren't, or the program, or the strategic role that you're in. Whatever it is, step up to leadership and lead and show people how to do this virtually. You're already very aware of how people are, the stakeholders, their preferences, and what works for them. So you're in the best place to demonstrate and to show virtual leadership and to model it to the rest of your organization. So do that.
Absolutely. Step up, show the leadership, model it, and lead by example, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, Penny, I'm absolutely certain that people will want to follow your work. They'll want to follow you. They'll want to find out more. I mean, clearly they can buy the book or possibly win the book, and we'll be announcing details of the competition in just a moment. But more generally, how can people stay in touch with you?
Yes, do contact me on LinkedIn. If you want to connect, though, I'm quite fussy. So if you just put a note saying BA Fringe, then I'll accept you straight away. I get huge numbers of people and it's just getting ridiculous. So BA Fringe and you're in. And I'm Penny Pullan. It's Pullan. And then I'll appear. I think I'm the only one in the world, or at least the other one is very obviously not a thought leader in business analysis. I'm on Twitter as well, Penny Pullan, if you want to hear me ranting about a few things. Otherwise, makingprojectswork.co.uk is where you can find me.
Fantastic. And I'm sure many, many people will. So Penny, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm sure many of you will now want to know how you can get hold of Penny's book. So Penny very kindly has provided a signed copy of the book to be given away. Well, what you need to do is you need to gloat on social media. about the BA Fringe, about what you have picked up, your biggest takeaways so far. And you can either use Twitter or you can use LinkedIn, use the BA Fringe hashtag and tag @PennyPullan or PennyPullan on Twitter so that Penny sees it and we see it and we know it's the book that you're after. And one lucky winner will win a signed copy of Penny's book. So so keep that in mind, and do do tweet LinkedIn and you might be lucky. There is also the opportunity to get a discounted copy of Penny's book. If you are attending live, we will send that out in the email, a voucher that you can use with the publisher to get some money off. And if you aren't watching live, it'll be in the comments on the YouTube link, YouTube description below. Fantastic. So we do have the ability for you to get shout outs to us here at the studio. So if you are wanting to have a shout out to your colleague or friend, you can use either WhatsApp, or you can leave us a regular old voicemail. So the phone number that's on your screen now you can use for WhatsApp. Or you can just ring it, and don't worry, it won't be a physical person that answers, it will be a voicemail, and we will get as many shout outs as we can. The number is +44 330 321 8281. And in fact, we had a couple of shout outs that came in between shows that I'd like to just read out now. So we have a shout out from Mark Atkins. And Mark says, I would love to get a shout out for the team at Avera Foods. That's Mark, Bo, Toby, Conrad, and Sam. So Mark, Bo, Toby, Conrad, and Sam, consider yourself shouted out. And we also have a shout out going to Paddy and Grant at the Visual Jam. So I think that came from Grant. If you're not familiar with the Visual Jam, a great meetup for people who like visualization, sketchnoting, and that sort of thing. Do Google that. It's well worth looking at. So that brings us to our next guest. I'm really pleased to introduce to you Matthew Dean. Now, Matthew Dean is going to talk about what I think is a really important topic. I suspect many, most, or all of us have perhaps at some point in our career felt that we're not quite good enough. Maybe you're there thinking, I don't know whether I'm qualified to do this. I feel like a bit of an imposter. Well, Matthew actually agreed to talk to us about imposter syndrome, and also to give us some tips and tricks of things we might want to think about. So Matt Dean himself is a business analyst and product owner. So to talk to us about imposter syndrome, Matt, over to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Matt Dean, and today I'm going to talk to you about some things you may be feeling when starting in a new role or in a new project. It can be extremely daunting for some people with new physical or online workplaces, different sets of stakeholders, and sometimes in a completely new domain. As with all change, we may find ourselves in shock, right at the top of the change curve. You may have even encountered or be going through what's known as imposter syndrome. So today, let's take a closer look at this and see if we can help to identify what this feels like, what can be done to understand it, and even overcome this using some tools and techniques available. As a business analyst, you may need to get involved in a new domain, and this will take most of us far out of our comfort zone and far away from the things that we already know. Some examples of different domains that we will work in are data, financial services, software, engineering, manufacturing, or the supply chain. So when imposter syndrome kicks in, what does it feel like? It feels like there's a mountain to climb. It can be completely overwhelming, and it can make you feel like you know nothing or very little in an area that you have dedicated your career in. It can also make you feel like you've lost all of your previous knowledge from things that you have learned. It can make you totally doubt yourself and your achievements, and it can leave you feeling pretty low. So what can you do at this stage? What are your options? Should you face facts? Are you an imposter? Should you give up? Stop what you're doing and let the professionals carry on with it? Should you work harder and work yourself into the ground? No, I don't think you should. I think at this point, you can go back and use the tools and techniques that you've learned and reinforce the reasons why you got into this role to help you get through this. Just before you do that, let's look at a set of coping techniques that you could try. First of all, start by writing down some positive affirmations and put them on the wall or somewhere that you will see them regularly to help you visualize the things that make you feel confident and assure you that you're doing the right thing. Remind yourself regularly of what you have achieved. Have you earned a qualification, delivered a great project, or have you achieved things in your personal life that you set out to do? Set yourself some new goals, even if it's just for today, this week, or longer term for a month or across a year. Set yourself things that you want to do and then work smartly towards achieving them. Find somebody that you love talking to. They don't have to work in business analysis. They don't even have to work in the same industry. Just find someone that you can bounce off and really enjoy talking with. The other thing which I find useful is just getting out and walking, because the thinking will be done for you. Okay, so once you've gone through these things to help you reflect and create an informed opinion, you can then move back to the professional skills that you need to work through to help you in the new domain or project. So the first thing to do is research the background and context for any new project or domain. Unearth key facts, documents and information, both from the people within the new organisation or online, to help you gain a wider perspective and understanding. Analyse your competitors in the domain, look at what they do, review industry-led papers, and quickly identify opportunities to increase your knowledge. Review all internal project documentation, project initiation documents, terms of reference, or anything that's useful to help you understand the business case. Get to know your stakeholders. Meet the teams that you'll be working with to understand their perspective and gain the benefit from their specific domain knowledge. Also, a good tip, if you're working in a very specialist industry, you'll really need to hone your stakeholder skills, because the people you're working with might be the only people that have the information you need. You'll need to use all of your questioning skills here to help you understand the domain. Once this is done, check in. Set out to understand any new acronyms, new meanings, and specific high-level needs of the project or domain. A thing to do here at this point is to play back your understanding to the stakeholders. This will help you to build good relationships early on. Another good thing to do at this point is to set and manage expectations. Within the first few weeks, complete the background and research study and get to know all of your key stakeholders. By the third and fourth week, become useful, start delivering value and showing what you've learned. There are further things that you can do to gain specific domain knowledge, such as subscribing to relevant forums, web pages, and online groups, and even Twitter. You can undertake specific domain training and certification if you like. Okay, so let's summarize what we've talked about today. Starting a new job or a new project can be tough. Learning a new domain or project takes time, and you should be thorough, diligent, and logical, but be sure to show what you know as soon as you can. It's not unusual to be anxious or suffer from something called imposter syndrome. Creating a set of coping techniques to get through this will help. It will take time, but it will pass. Use your analytical tools to help you keep on track. Set yourself realistic timelines. Talk to a wide range of stakeholders as frequently as possible to leverage their knowledge and build your own. Thanks very much. It's been great talking to you today. And if you've got any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, a really, really interesting take on what can only be described as a very, very relevant topic that I suspect many of us have experienced from time to time. So, you know, a massive thank you, Matt, for sharing those thoughts, those ideas in quite a sort of candid way. I'm sure we've all taken quite a lot from that. So one thing that might help alleviate at least a little bit of that imposter syndrome, you know, when you don't feel like you're up to standard, one possible strategy is to start thinking about certification. Now, of course, it's not the only strategy, but it is a strategy. And if you are thinking about business analysis certification, then you almost certainly will have come across IIBA's certification program. And I'm really pleased to say we have one certificate, or well, not one certificate, of course, one exam to give away for IIBA's, that's the International Institute of Business Analysis, the Entry Certificate to Business Analysis, the ECBA. And this is the exam you can sit even if you have no current business analysis experience. So if you're new to role or just in role, this might be a competition that you are interested in. One lucky winner will win the opportunity to sit the exam. All you need to do, again, is get your social media gloat on. Just either on LinkedIn or Twitter, use the hashtag #BAFringe. And also this time tag @IIBA. So if you tag or mention @IIBA, then we'll know this is the competition that you are looking to enter. I should mention there are bonus points if you tweet or use LinkedIn to post a selfie of yourself watching the BA Fringe. And you might want to include, you know, your biggest takeaway so far, whether it's something Penny said, something Matt said, or perhaps something that one of our upcoming guests say. So do keep that in mind. Keep those tweets and LinkedIn updates coming through, and we will notify you, of course, if you are the lucky winner. So I'm really pleased to move on to our next topic and our next guest. And this next topic's a really, really important one. The guest is actually a requested guest. So I've done webinars with Laurie Silverman in the past, and Laurie is just an absolute pleasure to work with. Such an innovative thinker and has so much relevant knowledge for us as business analysts. Sam actually got in touch by WhatsApp and specifically asked whether we could perhaps get Laurie on, and Laurie said yes, which is just fantastic. Now, everywhere you look, organizations are engaging in data analytics work, but have you ever wondered how successful those efforts have actually been? And whether enterprises and organizations are actually becoming data-driven or not? And more importantly, what can we as BAs add that would make a profound difference? So what we're about to hear from Laurie Silverman may surprise you. I know, having spoken to Laurie previously, it really, really made me think. A little bit about Laurie. Laurie has helped enterprises ranging across 25 different industries to navigate messy and complex changes and strategize about their future. She's a pioneer in the business storytelling field, where she authored 3 best-selling books and is known worldwide for her work in collaborative data-informed decision-making, a part of what she calls data literacy 2.0. So, Laurie, over to you.
Since 2015, I've been very interested in the research around the success of business and data analytics initiatives. Let me let you in on a secret. Did you know that there is not one study to date from any source that shows that these initiatives overall are consistently producing actionable results? Now you're probably saying, as I did, how can this be? I mean, didn't we spend a lot of money on the people side, finding the right talent and getting the right infrastructure in place? And didn't we spend a ton of money on the technology and application side of the house, you know, putting things in like, how do we govern the data? How do we capture the data? How do we clean the data, which is where data scientists spend a lot of their time? How do we analyze the data? How do we visualize the data? How do we present the data? It's all been about the data. However, New Vantage Partners, which has been doing research every single year since 2012, confirms what I've shared with you. They've said, even with these massive investments, these initiatives continue to struggle. So what do we do in our infinite wisdom? We say, oh, it must be about the people. Maybe it's the people on the business side. You know, maybe they're not data literate, so we need to get them a lot of training. And oh, maybe what they really need is self-service analytics, so we toss more technology at the picture. And then we say, but maybe it's the data and IT people. Maybe they don't know how to talk to the business, and we need to get them to cross-pollinate each other. And then other people say, well, no, it's the leaders. The leaders of organizations don't support these initiatives. And I gotta ask you something. If these initiatives were consistently producing actionable results, do you think leaders really wouldn't support them? I think they would. Now, every year since 2012, when New Vantage Partners does its research, one other piece continually comes out, and that is organizations are not putting in place a data-focused culture. As someone who's worked both on the data analytics side as well as organization development and strategy, I happen to agree with them that the culture piece is missing. However, I think they have the cart before the horse. Allow me to explain what I mean. Every piece of the conversation has been about the data. What if that's not the right conversation to have? What if it's not the right mental model? What if it's not the right paradigm? I mean, think about it. Data is an input to something. And what is it an input to? It's an input to decisioning. Data serves decisioning. Decisioning doesn't serve data. Technology and applications serve decisioning. Decisioning doesn't serve technology and applications. I happen to think that this paradigm shift is huge. It's as big as the shift from a point in time when we used to believe that the solar system revolved around the Earth to realizing with Copernicus that it revolved around the sun. Now, if you agree with me that this is something we need to shift in terms of our thinking, and that this shift in thinking will help to promote new behaviors which will get us different results, then I'd like to encourage you to engage in 5 behaviors within your own organization. First of all, go find yourself some kindred spirits, people who you could help you to have a conversation around this, to talk about what are the implications of making the shift from a focus on data to a focus on decisioning, and what are the sorts of things that we'd have to change inside the organization to help it focus on decisioning. Then with them, start to co-create a vision story about what would life be like if we made this shift in paradigm. How would your work be different? How would the work be different of people on the front line of the organization, or a first line supervisor, or someone who's a middle manager? The second thing I'd like you to do is to change your languaging. So when you're sitting in a meeting and you're going through the agenda, ask people for each one, what's the decision that we're trying to make? Or when someone comes to you asking for a dashboard to be made, instead of saying, what data do you need? Ask them, what decision are you trying to make every time you look at this dashboard? Or when someone comes to you asking for data, instead of saying, you know, let's get more specific on the data you need, ask them, what do you plan to do with this data? Because maybe I can help you figure out if it's the right data or not to use. The third thing I'd like you to do is to learn a methodology for collaborative data-informed decision-making. And that methodology needs to help you have conversations with people from what's the decision or action we're trying to make, and how do we flesh that out on paper? How might we even diagram that through to how do we look at the data and analyze it, and within that find true insights. And I'm not talking about just looking at the observations of the data, but what are the true insights that we need to act upon? And then how do we decide, given this decision, which of those insights is most important to make a decision around? And once we've made that decision, how do we action it? And then how do we follow up on the success of those actions? Because having that continuum will then help you to figure out whether or not you're getting success from your analytics efforts, because you're focused on the decisioning process itself. The fourth thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go back to that co-created vision story and to begin to socialize it with leaders inside of your organization. Get their input on it. What does it seem like to them needs to be added? How does this shift in paradigm feel to them? What sorts of things have you not thought about that you need to add to the story? And then finally, we actually do get to how do we shift culture. That's number 5. Once you have this co-created vision story that can truly stand within the organization that people find attractive and desirable to work towards, then you can take it and you can bounce it against every single aspect of the organization and do an assessment against what some people call the operating system, or what we call in organization development, doing an organizational architecture assessment. You know, does anything need to switch within HR policies and procedures? What does this mean to the way that we're documenting work processes? What does this mean to the numbers of dashboards that we have in the organization and how we use them? What does this mean to the technology that we're choosing or that we're having in place? Does anything need to go away, or do things need to change? Now, you're probably thinking, as I'm saying this to you, oh my gosh, Lori, you're talking about a lot of work. And you know what? I am. But what I know from having done this work in organizations and having gotten success with analytics efforts, because I made a switch to decisioning being at the forefront instead of at the back, in the background, is that the hardest step is always the first step. Are you willing to take it with me? I hope so.
Fantastic. Well, I think we can all agree some really thought-provoking ideas from Laurie there. And, you know, this has got me thinking about, well, you know, how can we step up? How can we step up? How, you know, what can we do? How can we, you know, how can we help with those things as BAs to make that real profound difference? So a massive thank you to Laurie for taking time out to provide us with those insights. If you liked what Laurie had to say, which I'm sure you will, one recommendation that I would have for you is go and follow Laurie on LinkedIn. In fact, if you're attending live, what we'll do is we'll actually send you out a link to Laurie's LinkedIn address, and, you know, connect with her and follow her. She really does share some really interesting content. So definitely a recommendation there. So we have even more shout outs that are coming in. We've had a steady stream of shout outs actually. So do remember, you can WhatsApp or leave us a regular old voicemail on the number that will be appearing on your screen shortly. The first shout out is a shout out to my wonderful wife, Ninda, who is responsible for getting me into business analysis. Love the BA Fringe concept, and that's from Harpal Lidder. So thank you very much, Harpal. And Ninda, wow, you got someone into business analysis. I mean, that's awesome, right? You know, the community is a bigger and better place because of that kind of sharing. Julia says, I really enjoyed the bite-sized presentations on the various topics. Very refreshing to hear info condensed into key points. As chair, can I give a big shout out, please, to all the members of the Scottish branch of IIBA UK? You certainly can, Julia. And as Julia, and I'm sure many people listening in will recognise, there is huge value in you know, in engaging with IIBA chapters. So if you have a local chapter, be sure to find out what events they have running. So now it's time for our next guest. So I am really excited about our next guest. There are some times when you put a contact form on an international bestsellers website, expecting that they probably won't reply, and then the next morning you actually get a personal response, and that was really what happened with this next guest. Now, I'm certain that many of you, if not most or all of you, will be familiar with David Allen's work. I first came across David Allen's work with this book, which I bought in 2011, shortly before a trip to the USA. And I pretty much read it, not quite in one go, but very, very quickly. And it radically changed the way that I approached my inbox, the way I approached my to-do list and my calendar. And I still have the book now. I refer to it. I have the audio book that I refresh myself with every now and again as well. So a little bit about David. David is one of the world's most influential thinkers on productivity, with 35 years experience as a management consultant and executive coach, which have earned him the titles of Personal Productivity Guru by Fast Company magazine and one of America's top 5 executive coaches by Forbes magazine. The American Management Association has ranked him as one of the top 10 business leaders, and his best-selling book, the groundbreaking Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, has been published in 30 languages. So David, thank you so much for being with us today.
Adrian, delighted to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you so much. So David, I mentioned how GTD, Getting Things Done, really helped me as a practitioner. If someone's listening into this and they've never heard of GTD, how would you describe it to them in a nutshell?
It's a set of best practices that I recognized and objectified about how do you surf on top of the too many things to do, so much input, so much information, and be able to then manage significant space inside your head to focus on the most meaningful things without being distracted by all that. So it's a set of best practices about how to do that. They're simple to do, but you're not born doing them. So, you just need to identify what's got your attention, clarify what they mean, and then, if you can't finish them in the second that they happen, how do you organize them in some sort of trusted external brain that you reflect and review on some regular basis, so you make trusted choices about what you do?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think that certainly one thing that I found was that before I had read Getting Things Done, I almost felt overwhelmed because I felt like I couldn't remember everything, and I didn't have a system I could rely on. And you mentioned the external brain there. So presumably that external brain allows people to sort of somewhat release because they know they've got a system and they trust the system. So actually they can relax a little bit more.
Sure. Anybody watching or listening to this that maintains a calendar or a diary or a scheduler already has said your brain can't do it.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that, then I just figured out do it with everything, not just your calendar, so that your head's clear and you're able to be present with whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that presence is actually a really interesting angle as well, David, because I suppose one thing that many people watching this will be finding is that, we seem to live in a very busy world, and there's, phone calls, there's text messages, there's WhatsApp messages, there's instant messages. So would you say that getting things done as an approach actually helps people to focus on what's important?
Of course. That's the whole idea, is to be able to be present so that you are not distracted by the rest of the things you're doing, and you can be fully present on whatever you're doing, so that if you were taking a nap, it'll let you sleep well, as opposed to take a nap to escape your world. Or if you're enjoying a great bottle of wine, you can do that to enjoy it, as opposed to using that to escape the rest of your world. So a lot of it's about how to identify my world and feel then comfortable about my choices about what I do, and maybe more importantly, what I'm not doing.
Yeah.
But you need to know what you're not doing before you can feel comfortable about what you're not doing.
Yeah, I still remember when I first read the book, one of the things which was for me terrifying, and I remember reading it and being terrified, but then doing it was, and I can't remember the exact wording you use, but you essentially say, find everything that's outstanding, and if it's a physical thing, put it in a pile, or if it's an electronic thing, put it in an electronic pile, because until you've seen everything, you've no idea, and it's going to sort of be haunting you. And I remember physically having, I created a physical pile of stuff that I hadn't been processing, and it was huge. So that I guess that element of having to let go of the fear so that you can get in control, perhaps, as well.
Yeah, and Adrian, I'm sorry anybody watching this, but there's kind of a duh factor here. It's like, duh. What's got your attention, and why does it have your attention, and what have you not decided about it yet that forces it to still be on your mind? So you don't have to finish things to get them off your mind. You do have to appropriately engage with them. But in order to appropriately engage with them, first you have to identify what they are. Duh. What's in this pile that's sitting there? What's in this email? Oh my God. And what am I going to do about it, if anything? Should I dump it? Should I file it as reference? Should I, review it in 2 weeks from now to decide what to do? Or if it's something I need to do, what does doing look like? Is that a website I need to surf about this? Do I need to talk to my life partner about this? Do I, what? And if one action won't finish it, what's the outcome?
Yeah.
So it's a thought process, and it's an installed thought process. So it's not hard to do, but again, it's something you need to sort of train your cognitive muscles to do about that stuff, so it doesn't mount up and create some backlog. And, Adrian, over the last, year or two, I've really discovered it's not so much the sense of overwhelm. If you were overwhelmed, if your building caught on fire right now, believe me, that's a sense of overwhelm. You'll handle it.
Yeah.
You'll deal. The biggest issue is when the building is not on fire, it's all that other weird stuff out there that creates what I call the ambient anxiety.
Yeah.
It's the ambient anxiety that really gnaws at you, that wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh God, I need to, what should I do about? And it's that stuff. But that's what I discovered, how you get rid of it. And that's great to get rid of that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting analogy. Because as you were speaking there, David, I was thinking, because you're absolutely right, of course, that when there's something urgent like a fire, then the instincts kick in, or a metaphorical fire. But there's also all the other like preventative things that need to be done to stop tomorrow's fires. And if they're not scheduled because we're forever reacting, because we haven't got a clear system in place, then it actually robs us of the opportunity to make that decision more strategically later.
Correct. Yeah. So you need to prevent the crises. See, there's one organization in the world that never has fires and crises. It's called the fire department.
Yes.
Right, because they're organized for that. Even though most of the alarms are false. I mean, talk about a reason to be pissed. It's like, it's probably not real. No. They deal with that the way they deal with that. When they're not dealing with that, they're getting ready for the next one. And so we need to be doing the same thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know one thing. I mean, there were many things that I took from my first reading of the book, and more that I've gained in subsequent readings and listening to the audiobook. But one thing I found really again, I suppose it was a bit of a duh moment, but for me a really powerful one was the sometimes maybe category, where actually I can put something in a sometimes maybe pile and I don't need to feel guilty about it anymore, because if there's time, I'll look at it. And if I don't, that's just fine. But I know before that, what I had was really long lists, which were almost demoralizingly long. So those sort of tips seem to, well, certainly really, really helped me as a practitioner.
Yeah, well, not only that, I mean, people get a little overwhelmed when they try to think they should implement this, because they're going to wind up with some pretty big list. And I say, well, do you like to go to a restaurant that only has one thing on the menu? No, you like to have a lot of choices. So when you really think about it, they're all options to do, because you can only do one thing at a time. So life is either, the glass is half empty or half full. You either feel really comfortable about the one thing you're deciding to do right now, or really bad about all the stuff you can't be doing, because Adrian, you and I are talking to each other. Oh my God, Adrian, how many things are you not doing right now?
Thousands.
How many things am I not doing right now? Oh my God. Right? I just need to know what all those are. And I go, no, wait, we're cool.
Definitely.
But you just need to know what that is and make sure that's externalized and objectified. That's really what this is about.
Yeah, yeah. So David, if let's imagine someone was reading Getting Things Done for the first time or listening to the audiobook, what like takeaway or tip would you have for someone who's implementing that in their workflow for the first time ever?
There are probably, Adrian, probably two basic behaviors as capture and review. You need to get the stuff out of your head and you need to take a look at it on some consistent basis. I mean, that, in a sense, that's the duh factor, but very few people really, really do that. You know, there's a lot of it. There's some significant steps in between. A lot of people have to-do lists where they've captured stuff, but they haven't decided what they're going to do about what they've captured.
Yes.
You know, their to-do lists are kind of amorphous blobs of undoability because they haven't figured out what the next step is on mom's birthday, or the tooth that hurts, or the vice president they need to hire, or
yeah,
you know, whatever the hell that's on their to-do list. Right. So there are some things you need to do about that. But I would say basically, guys, get this, get it out of your head, and on some consistent basis, be able to look at what that means. Now, there's some things you need to do to decide what it means, but Adrian, those are the key elements, really.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just as you were talking there about actionability, it was making me reflect, because I think the way I've even changed, I've adapted and learned as I practiced, I suppose, that the approach. And one thing I find myself doing now is I tend to think that like an item is a good item if it's sort of got a verb and a noun. So like, you know, write blog that means I've decided what to do. You know, it's sort of purposeful. So that then removes, I find if I have to think, if I pull something from that stack and I have to think about it, for me, I then get stuck in a procrastination loop.
Well, I would add one more level of sophistication that makes it easier. For me, that would not be write blog, it's draft blog.
Okay, yes.
Because see, you can draft, you know, like, and still win. Whereas write, it's better be good.
Yeah. Draft, and for me with blogs, David, it's draft, redraft, edit, hover over the publish button, and then eventually publish it sometime in the future. So,
of course, yeah.
So David, thank you so much for taking time. I'm absolutely certain that people will want to know more, and of course they can go ahead and buy the book. But what other resources are there? How can people find out about your work?
Well, if you go to gettingthingsdone.com, that's our website, and look under training and coaching, and then click on whatever country you live in, you'll find our certified licensees who deliver both coaching and training, you know, about this methodology. And it's a rigorous certification. So these are all really, really, you know, cool folks. So for instance, in the UK, the Next Action Associates, you know, are fabulous folks, great partners and good friends. And so those are great resources for you know, how to do that. The book itself, obviously, you know, wherever you can get that is going to be kind of the manual about all this. But if you want further resources, there's lots of ways to get that. Fantastic.
Well, David, I'm sure everyone will be clicking over to that website and clicking onto their favorite bookshop of choice as we speak. So thank you so much for joining us, David. Enjoy the rest of your day.
My pleasure, Adrian. Same to you. Bye, everybody.
Fantastic. So much that we could pick up from David Allen there. I think, as I said, you know, I've really learned a lot from Getting Things Done. If you haven't had the opportunity to read the book, do take a look. It's available as an audiobook as well. And we'll put a link in the wrap-up email that goes to people who registered for this session to the site that David mentioned there. So that very, very nearly brings us to the end of the session. Now, do remember that there are two competitions. Now, we won't actually draw the competitions for a little while because we'll just give people the opportunity to catch up on the recording. So, you know, if you are watching the recording within the next day or so, you've still got the opportunity to enter. You can win, of course, a fantastic signed copy of Penny's book, Virtual Leadership. You need to get your social media gloat on and tweet or LinkedIn your biggest takeaway from this episode, and if you tag Penny Pullan in there or mention Penny Pullan, then we'll know you're entering that competition, and one lucky winner will win a signed copy. Bonus points if you share a selfie of you watching the BA Fringe. That's always a favourite. And you could also win an exam. You could win a free coupon to give you an ECBA, entry certificate to business analysis, kindly provided by IIBA. All you need to do to be in with a chance of winning that is, again, to get on social media, LinkedIn or Twitter, and gloat about the biggest takeaway so far, and just tag at IIBA or mention IIBA so that we know that you are entering that competition as well. And if you are the lucky winner, we will of course get in touch with you on social media. Also, although we've got no more opportunity for shout outs on this episode, you can actually, as people often do, you can either drop us a WhatsApp message or a regular old voicemail by just picking up the phone. As I say, you won't have to speak to anyone. It'll be you've got the opportunity to leave a voicemail there on the number, which is +44 330 321 8281. So the next show is on the 26th of October. So mark your calendars already. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're missing out on the opportunity to network in the Zoom chat room, because people on Zoom are exchanging ideas and probably, you know, networking and having a good time, hopefully. So if you missed out, register now. The Zoom room does tend to fill up before the event goes live. If you're watching this on catch up, do check the link in the YouTube description so you can register for the next one. If you're attending live on Zoom, we're going to put the link in the chat so you can click right through and register straight away. So all that's left for me to do is to say a massive thank you to you for tuning in to BA Fringe. It's episode 2. You know, you will have noticed a few technical glitches along the way. Hopefully that didn't affect your enjoyment of the program too much. And if nothing else, you know that we definitely are really, really live. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to our guests, to Laurie Silverman, to David Allen, to Penny Pullan, and of course to Matthew Dean for sharing their knowledge. If you would like to be on a future episode of BA Fringe, please do just get in touch. We can absolutely make that happen. This is really designed to be a community platform for people to exchange ideas. So if you have an idea, you know, whether that's just a 7-minute conversation or a 12-minute conversation, let me know. We can absolutely talk about it, make it happen. Also, massive thank you to our sponsors, IIBA. If you're not familiar with IIBA, definitely, you know, I'm always been a big advocate, and in fact was a volunteer director for 7 years for the IIBA UK chapter. If you have enjoyed BA Fringe, please tell your colleagues, send them the link, get them involved. It'll be great for this to grow and for us to have our own BA TV channel, for us to you know, spread the word about business analysis. Now, I know often people think that Black Metric and the content I produce is just me. That's not true. I would love it. You know, I'm fortunate in I have a number of people, a team that are able to make things like this happen. And at risk of embarrassing someone particularly, I would very much like to do my own shout out now to Matt, because what you may have noticed at the very beginning is that there was a temporary sort of blip in the video. What you probably didn't know is that a major piece of broadcast equipment failed, which required some major intervention. And Matt, who is producing the show, made that look absolutely seamless. So well done, Matt. If you want to, can you get in front of the camera? Oh, you'll do a wave. So everyone wave back at Matt. So thank you again for attending. 26th of October. And well, enjoy your business analysis, enjoy our business analysis, and see you next time.